Hey, yo, what up? Welcome back to Markman Comics. My name is Rob Markman. This is my channel where I share my passion, my love for comic book arts, comic collection, just superheroes, just everything comic books, man. So shout out to everybody who watches, who subscribe, who comments, who likes the video. Y'all helping me build this community, and I appreciate y'all so much. So haven't had much in the way of new books because there's something going on with Diamond. They shut down a warehouse in Pennsylvania, and my local LCS is connected to that warehouse. So haven't gotten in new books in a couple of weeks. Things have just been like trickling in. But I thought it was a good time to revisit, one of the books that really kind of shaped me as a comic book fan, right? And probably shaped a lot of us. I'm betting, if I was a betting man, it's a good time to look back. And I recently revisited talking about the summer of 1990, talking about Todd McFarlane and Spider-Man, and specifically those first 5 issues, the Torment storyline, right? Really just shaped me. 2.5 million copies sold of the first Spider-Man book. This was the first time that I became aware of variants, in comic books, like really consciously aware of variants existed before this. But I feel like for me, this blew variants up, like, and really kind of made variant books a thing where you went out and you tried to get every single cover. So I want to talk about Spider-Man Torment, the Todd McFarlane, um, first storyline of this Spider-Man book, which was amazing to me. Let's put that down real quick, and I'll tell you why I kind of get into it and really what it was that struck me. So, summer 1990, I'm 10 years old. Lizard is the villain. Calypso, get a little bit of Craven in there. It was dark, it was bloody. It felt like it had consequence. Like, it wasn't like sunshine and rainbows. It wasn't that the hero wins at the end. And again, I'm from a different generation. I imagine, kids reading Frank Miller's Dark Knight for the first time felt that way. I imagine reading The Watchmen in real time felt like really adult. This one felt like, it felt like Spider-Man might be killed off in this, right? And felt like there was a real consequence to this storyline. And maybe, it was because I was just a kid. Of course, Marvel wasn't going to kill Spider-Man, but not long after that, DC killed Superman. So who knows, right? So, I have the individual issues. I also have the trade paperback, which I went back and revisited. So how did the book come about, right? The book came about, obviously. Todd McFarlane was the big Spider-Man artist on Amazing Spider-Man, and he wanted to leave to write his own stuff. And according to Jim Salicrup, the editor, they also wanted a new Spider-Man title that would work outside of the continuity of the other titles, the Web of Spider-Man, the Spectacular Spider-Man, ASM, and where they can create these 5 to 6 issue story arcs, which then they could reprint into trade paperback. So it was absolutely a business decision. But Todd wanted to leave, and they offered him a new book that he could write, and he stayed. So there's that. Also, it's interesting that Todd McFarlane wanted to use Green Goblin instead of Lizard for this storyline here. I'll read a little bit of Jim Salicrup's forward. He says, did either John or Todd have complete creative freedom? He's talking about John Byrne, and specifically John Byrne on the Fantastic Four. So this is Jim writing from the editor's perspective, because the growing consensus was that, especially with these image guys and these new artists that they were taking over, the editors were just like succumbing to their every will and things like that. And Jim is kind of defending his position here, right? So did either John or Todd have complete creative freedom? Of course not. Neither John nor Todd owned these characters, and it was my job to be the characters' caretakers. Just as John wanted to do stories that I didn't want to see done, Todd had to compromise as well. The Torment series is a perfect example. Todd would have preferred to use the Green Goblin or several other villains. All of Todd's first choices were already being utilized in the 3 other Spider-Man titles. Todd settled for the Lizard. So, I kind of think, if I can remember around this time, I believe there was a multi-issue Green Goblin story going on in Spectacular Spider-Man. I could vividly, in my head, see Sal Buscema's art, and I love the way that Sal Buscema drew Spider-Man as well. I was a big fan of Spectacular. But so, we end up with the Lizard, we end up with Calypso, we end up with a little bit of Craven. And right out the gate, the story was dope, and Todd as a writer really really sets it up nicely, right? Like, because there's this juxtaposition in the first of all, this spread, man. Look at the spread. I'll put it on the screen. This splash page, this Torment splash page. Like, again, Todd redefined how Spider-Man looked. We all knew this, right? With the webbing that he built upon, and the big bug eyes, and this was just a different Spider-Man. And actually, a Spider-Man that artists after Todd had to adopt this look, right? This became Spider-Man's de facto look. At the time, though, it was a little controversial, and a lot of editors fought against it. I think Jim actually talks about fighting against it. I could see if I could find it, but we know this is well documented, right? So, first scene is there's a woman getting mugged in the alleyway, and there's a robber, just kind of your run-of-the-mill thug. Spider-Man stops him. The robber points a gun at Spider-Man's chest. Spider-Man destroys the gun, wraps the robber up, leaves him for the cops. This is just what Spider-Man does, right? Like, regularly what he does. Wrap him up, leave him for the cops, keeps it moving. And then in the next scene, he's home with Mary Jane, and like really going over in his head, like, yo, the nerve of this guy who thought that he could kill me. And he starts listing the villains that he fought, or just the people he fought in general. He says, I mean, these guys are such cement heads. Don't they realize I've been Spider-Man for a few years now? I've had hundreds, probably thousands of fights against Dr. Doom, Hulk, the Goblins, Rhino, Red Skull, Venom. Heck, I even had one against Thanos, for God's sakes. Maybe I'm just too logical, but if none of those guys can kill me, why did this punk tonight think he'd be the one? That's just dumb. So, he sets up, right? Like I can't be killed. I'm invincible. Like Peter Parker is feeling himself. And it's just funny how that juxtapositions what's about to happen with him, because he's going to get put through the ringer, right? And this was one of the most bloody Spider-Man stories I have read up until that point. And I know a lot of people also talk about Venom and how scary it was for Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and for readers, if you were a fan of Spider-Man, when Venom was first introduced, and those first couple of Venom fights was super brutal. His spider sense didn't work on him. Venom could sneak up on him. Venom was bigger, stronger than him, for sure. Especially that scene, and Todd just had a penchant for this, I guess. But there's also that scene in the early Amazing Spider-Man Venom appearances where Venom just beats the hell out of Black Cat. Like, it was like, yo, what's going on here? This Torment is a continuation of that, right? So here Peter Parker is like feeling like, yo, he can't be touched, like, he can't be killed, and it juxtaposes with Lizard being rebirthed and into a killer, and Lizard was never really quite a killer before, but he's killing people on the streets. So this is all happening simultaneously and setting up for issue 2, right? So we get pretty early into issue 2, and a few things are going on with Spider-Man. Calypso put a voodoo spell on him, so his spider sense is going crazy. His head is pounding. He can't kind of make sense of it all. He doesn't know right from left. He's just going through it. And then the Lizard attacks, and the Lizard has some type of toxin in his nails, scratches Spider-Man, so Spider-Man is poisoned. So it's the spell working on him. It's the poison working through his body, and it's the brute strength of Lizard, right? And so right away it's getting pretty brutal. And then Todd writes, speaking for Spider-Man, for the first time in a while, you believe you can die. So in issue 1 and issue 2, just that juxtaposition of like, yo, the nerve of these punks thinking he could put a gun at my chest and kill me. I done beat all these guys. And then pretty early on in issue 2, it's like, oh no, you believe you can die. And I mean, we get a panel of Peter Parker running away, like begging for the pain to stop, the pain in his head, the pounding in his head. And then he cries out for Mary Jane to help him. Like, what can Mary Jane do against the Lizard, right? It was almost like a kid crying for his mother. So Spider-Man's just all messed up in disarray, right? And the book is written with this beat, with this pounding drum beat, which I thought was dope. Cover issue 3 was amazing with the trade dress upside down. I'll show it here on screen with the trade dress upside down, the jumbled words that read something strange is going on here, the subtle references to a Craven appearance. You could see that in the art on the cover. You didn't know it till you opened the book, but I thought this cover did like a really good job at capturing what was going on. I thought the upside down trade dress was brilliant. And then, we get to this last page on issue 3, with a hole blown through Craven's head. It's such a dope reveal. Like, this was one of my favorite reveals at the time. I'm like, yo, Craven is back. Obviously, in the storyline, you realize that Craven isn't really back. But Craven's last hunt, even though it was a little bit before my time, at that point, I was aware of it. And I was aware of that storyline and the consequence of that storyline. Maybe I saw it in a reprint or an editor's note or something like that. But, Craven took his own life, blew a hole through his head, and here he is back. And that last page on issue 3 is such a dope reveal. It made you just like, yo, I need the next issue to come out right now. You know what I'm saying? And for me, that's still the mark of a comic book that I love. Like, can it keep me wanting to read the issue? Like, after I finish the current issue, like, I can't wait for the next one to come out, right? And fewer comic books do that these days. But I remember feeling like that with the Spider-Man series. Made you want to come back every month. Issue 4 and 5 just put Spider-Man through the ringer. The way his costume is ripped, just tattered, like the way the bug eye is shattered. There's blood, there's slobber. He just looks broken. The art is great, like, and it really communicates what's going on through the written word and through the art. Like, Spider-Man is being put through the ringer. He's being tested like never before. It felt like every issue had consequence. And as a kid, it felt like I was reading something maybe that I wasn't supposed to read, something super serious. Kind of reminded me, I remember feeling like that. And a lot of kids from my generation, if you go back to Transformers, the animated film that was in theaters, and in the first 20 minutes, Optimus Prime died. Here we were so excited to, like, oh man, they're going to put Transformers in the movie theaters. I can watch my favorite cartoon on the big screen. And the first 20 minutes, they kill Optimus Prime. Like it was gut wrenching. I'm gonna do a whole other video on that and the psychological effect that probably had on kids from my generation. And in this one, it was kind of like similar in a way, right? Like, first of all, this was a Spider-Man #1. I wasn't old enough, clearly, to have an Amazing Spider-Man #1. I wasn't around for that. I wasn't even really around for Web of Spider-Man #1, the Spectacular Spider-Man #1. But now I can hold my own Spider-Man #1. I can have my own Spider-Man #1. This was a cause for celebration. That cover was so iconic right off the bat. You know what I'm saying? And then it looks like y'all killing him. It looks like Optimus Prime all over again. But it felt like that we were reading something super serious, man. Just look at the art, man. Of course, Spider-Man wins, right? 5 issues in, he wins, but there isn't any real triumph. The issue doesn't stop being dark once he wins. The sun doesn't come out once he wins. Check out this panel where he sneaks in through the sunroof, right? Peter Parker always snuck in through the sunroof into the bathroom to come home so nobody would see him come into his building. So he sneaks through the sunroof and hits the bathroom floor and crawls into his apartment, like, bloodied and battered. Like, and this is after he won. Like, this is the end of the arc, where we see him just getting his ass beat throughout, and he won, but barely, like, literally crawled home. Like, it was clear that this was a different type of series. This was a darker series. This was a different take on Spider-Man. Even on the front cover, one of the cover lines, the return of the Iraq Knight. I kind of felt like, looking back at it, like, probably very much like influenced by Frank Miller, maybe The Dark Knight. You know what I'm saying? It was just a darker twist take on Spider-Man. Issue 6 and 7 featured Hobgoblin. That's probably my favorite depiction of Hobgoblin was in those issues that Todd did, where it was just much darker stories. Hobgoblin, who was actually one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, like probably top 3 for me, for real, is a demon in this one, like just really demonic, just really dark, just really twisted, but then funny, him feeling like he's actually like angelic or some type of savior. So issue 6 and 7 with Hobgoblin and Ghost Rider, those were dope issues in the dope storyline. Issues 8 through 12 featured Wolverine and Wendigo and dealt with child murders. Like, this wasn't kids stuff. It wasn't clear to me at the time, but looking back, it is clear that this was a precursor to Todd's work on Spawn. And that would come in 1992 when he and all the Image guys left to form their own company, right? So like Spawn is so dark and and twisted, and it's clear like this Spider-Man Torment series, really the first maybe 12 issues of Spider-Man felt like a warm-up for what Todd McFarlane was about to give us in Spawn. It was really dark and twisted stuff. And then this trade paperback reprints some pages from Marvel Age 90. Y'all know the book. So Todd has some plans. I'll share that just didn't come to fruition, and I'll read it just a little bit, and then we'll end there. But you know, he talked about making this book separate from the Web of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, and Spectacular. So, you know, Todd does not plan to feature the other regular members of the supporting cast or to tie in ongoing subplots in the other 3 Spider-Man titles. So this was never meant to be crossed over. Todd says, I'll leave people like Betty to the writers of the other books. When somebody is involved with the main crux of the story, then I'll focus on that person for 4 or 5 issues. I'm talking about Betty Brant. So it says, issue 6 through 10 team Spider-Man up with Wolverine against the ravenous monster of the Canadian woodlands, the Wendigo. Then Todd says, roughly issues 11 through 15 will probably be a Green Goblin story. I want to make a meaner looking Goblin. So we never got that story. We never got to see Todd McFarlane. I mean, we saw him draw Green Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man, but it seems like he has some other plans in the Spider-Man title to make a darker Green Goblin, and we never got that story. So issues 11 through 15 will probably be a Green Goblin story. I want to make a meaner looking Goblin. Then probably 16 through 20 will be a Venom story. That's almost 2 years for 4 storylines. And we never got to see him draw Venom again, which would be ill. I don't know how many of y'all listen to Rob Liefeld's Robservation podcast, but one thing that Rob predicted will happen in the coming years, he made some big comic book predictions, right? And one of the things that he predicted is that we'll see Todd McFarlane draw Spider-Man again, perhaps in a Spawn Spider-Man crossover that Marvel allows to happen and sanctions, but also once. I mean, just revisiting after all these years, Todd McFarlane drawing Spider-Man again would be a big deal. So I would like to see it. I hope Rob's prediction comes true. You know, maybe we could throw Venom in there, like a Venom versus Spawn, like that'd be ill. But this is ill, man. A shame that we never got the rest of what Todd McFarlane planned for the Spider-Man series. But you know, what came after that was greatness. We got Spawn after that, and the birth of the Image comics, and where would we be without Image? But I just wanted to take this time to make this video, man, and salute. This is probably my favorite comic book story ever. And I'm not saying it's the best. It just came at the right time for me at the right age and really opened my mind up to the possibilities of what could happen with comics. So y'all could comment, man. Let me know what story that was for you. Let me know about this Torment story that you experience in real time. You know, were you old enough to experience in real time? Like, did you have to go back and read it? What are your thoughts on it? And then also just, what was that comic story for you? What was that arc? What was that moment in comics that really, really like opened the whole world up? I'd like to know. So like, subscribe, comment, do all that. Till the next time. All right. Peace.